Whoa, what's up, y'all? This is Akio. I'm coming at y'all with another story time with Akio Evans. Mondays is moments that made me. And one of the things that I can say is it's moments in life when we have to pivot. And in that moment, it can change the trajectory of what you will experience, good or bad. Um, about what I want to say, wow, it's been a minute, y'all. April 2022, April 5th of 2022, I resigned from my full-time job that I worked 12 years at Johns Hopkins University. This job was cage washer. I was a cage washer um, at the university. That job description required me to make deliveries of like animal cages that needed to be available for technicians, researchers, all related to cancer, like cancer research. In this position, what I would do, how I started, in 2010, I was like cleaning like feces out of mice cages, and we would dump them, and we would, you know, um, clean, these big, what do you call them? Monkey cages. I wasn't responsible for cleaning the monkey cages, but it was huge cages that we would clean, and we would have to put them. It was like 180 cages that sat on one rack alone. And then sometimes we had to make deliveries to the next building. And it was this job that developed my patience, my skills as a editor, as a filmmaker. I was always editing, but it was a time where I was editing and I had to, do projects for nightclubs that required me to have a quick turnaround. Uh, Velvet Rope, Dubai Nightclub, Lux, all these clubs were requesting, commercials that they would need for when artists like Juicy J, Two Chains, Meek Mill, um, Lil Flip, a lot of artists that would come to visit the city. And I started off working night shift, 3 to 11. And I will always, is what I will always say, I will always bring my work to work. Even before I started doing like shoe mural art, heavy, I was doing, like I said, video editing, or I was filming weddings, or I was filming parties. And I would utilize that time while I was at work to edit. So that way, by the time I got home, I mean, of course, I will be tired and exhausted, but a portion of the work was already done, so I could have a quick turnaround. Um, Working at that job, I've met some dope people, good friends of mine, that we've shared so much together. A friend of mine, his name is Pat. He lost his mother. I lost my mother while working there. And, you know, these experiences, when you actually work at a job, it's like the people there become your family. So me leaving the job, it wasn't an easy task. Like it wasn't a thing where I was like, hooray. It was more so of a thing that I was acting off of faith, and really moving with intention and listening to the Holy Spirit sharing with me that, I should make the call or I needed to move. When COVID had happened, there was a lot of things that had happened, a lot of changes that were made with COVID. We would work sometimes 5 days or 6 days on and 6 days off, or 7 days on and 7 days off of work, because we had to social distance and not work with or interact with. Of course, we had to keep 5 feet, but in most cases where the laboratories had required people, they would just, have the workers have some time off. And it was very interesting how we did it, but it changed the workflow a bit, and especially when the machines would stop working. And when I made the decision, it was because it was some things that were handled that I had to start off where I was moved in the position. I was moved in the department where I started in, and because the machine was broke. And during COVID, if anything happened, if you sneeze, if you cough, you get paranoid. And when the machine is broke, you have to do everything manually. So we had a machine that would be a conveyor where we would have like cages that we would bed it. We call it bedding, that we would bed up. And I remember the bedding of the dust that was coming and rising from the cages, sometimes it'll cause nosebleeds. You know what I mean? And who would want anything like that? Especially, sometimes you can get sick. Who would want anything like that, especially during or after COVID? Nobody, right? So it was that, and it was on top of, a lot of things that was happening and changes that was being made. So then I took the initiative to say, yo, look, this ain't for me no more. I got to dip. You know what I mean? Because work was my artwork, my request of my artwork was still happening. At this time, I was just doing artwork for We Own the City. HBO had contacted me for the second time to do artwork for the show that was featured in the show, and as well as they had paid for me to come to New York, my room and board, and they had me at the red carpet, and I was artistic director for the rap gift, so it was like 250 hoodies that was made for the cast and crew and directors and producers, and I had to sign each and every last one of the hoodies that I designed and made with the HBO team. It was just an amazing experience, and from that point on, I also was getting contacted by Apple TV or um, Sasha Penn, who actually writes for Raising Kanan along with Courtney Kemp. So a lot of my artwork was being requested from stars, and you know, shout out to Angel Christie. She had connected me to Ava DuVernay because Ava DuVernay seen a hoodie that Angel had wore on set of this Colin Kaepernick series and Ava was interested, but Angel had said, "Yo, I'm just going to commission Akio to make these CW Naomi from the DC comic book," and they wore it on red carpet. And again, this is like still COVID was still fresh, so they had like a private red carpet event, and they wore my hoodies at the red carpet event. And Ava DuVernay, she filmed the video and shared it. So it was a time, y'all. It was a time, and then I every time I would come to work, I felt like it was in my way, and it was too much for me to bear because by the time, as I shared with you guys in previous videos, if you look at my previous live videos about the Richard Pryor shirt, it was times where I was feeling like I was burnt out, that I would look at my work and just be stuck. So when it was too many moments like that I was experiencing like that, I said, okay, I have to. I've outgrown this job, and I had two people that had shared and gave me advice that it was time. So I said, you know what? I have faith that I can pull through, and I did it. I did it. April 5th, 2022. I left. I left the job, and my supervisor. He was always, since I've been working there, even before I started taking the artwork serious, I was always having like these sprinkles of moments of connected with stars. Like when I was doing work for Felicia Pearson for her documentary or docu series, Grace at the Midnight, I was able to, connect with Spike Lee, and meet him and put him into our first film, which was her film as well. And with those experiences, people always were saying like, "Yo, you ain't gonna be at this job for long. You ain't gonna be at this job for long." My supervisor, we would always quote like the movie Good Will Hunting, meaning like we all shared the same like locker rooms, and he would always say, "Yo, one of these days, yo, I'm gonna see you, and you're not gonna come to the locker room." So when it came time for me to do it, and I remember he was like, "Yeah, man, just drop off your badge and just and he was waiting, and I didn't even go. I already put my 2 weeks notice and all that other stuff respectfully, but when it came time for me to turn in my badge, I didn't even like go to the office the last day. I just dipped, you know what I mean? So that was in his request the Goodwill Hunting moment that he was quoting, and he was from Boston too, you know what I mean? So he was of course, he's a big fan of Matt Damon and what's the other guy's name? Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, because they from Boston. But anyway, yeah, I decided to leave, and it was just to have faith on my gifts and allow my gifts to make room for me. And it's amazing because I remember I went to this conference, this Eric Thomas conference, and about a couple of years back, and I have to share that story some other time too. So just remind me to share that story. And I'm going to try to write that story down because that was another synchronicity, serendipitous moment, similar to the ludicrous. But I remember writing down in my journal, as a matter of fact, because I keep dream journals with me. You know what I mean? I got a lot of journals right here below me. But this is one of the journals that was at the conference. And in a few of the first pages, it talked about, this is August 9th, 2019. And It was, man, Eric got me through a lot of the years working at Hopkins. With my work ethic, with me waking up early in the morning, people used to catch me on my Snapchat. I used to be up like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning running, and I'm gonna go straight to work after the fact. I mean, of course, I was showering and all that, but working a 10 to 12 hour shifts, especially sometimes I would do overtime. Yo, I was a workhorse. You hear me? And still doing my either video editing or doing my artwork. But in this journal, I talked about like leaving my job, in 2019, and then it came to pass in 2022. But it's some interesting things here, and I'm gonna highlight this maybe in that episode. I'm not gonna go further deep into things that's written in here because like I said, I got journals for days, man. I have dream journals. I have, affirmation, just journal entries of me just documenting a day, and you know, I've always said it and shared this quote that Eric says. He says, "People forget, but paper remembers." And even as I pulled out one of those journals out just now, and I was reading some of the stuff, it was some things that I was just looking at just now. I was like, "Oh wow, I definitely have to go through this," because sometimes when you leave the entries, when you make these entries into your journal, sometimes for me, I look at it maybe once or twice and don't look at it all. But this is another journal, like front to back, like what I'm saying. The whole journal full. Uh, Dated August 11th, 2020, when I did the Stan Smiths and the for the David McMahon Own Network. See, I forgot about I did stuff for Own TV. People forget, but paper remembers. But I say all this to say that anybody that feels like a chapter has closed and they've outgrown either a company, either the person, that you be in prayer and that you have a plan. I had a plan that I was going to continue to do the things that I was doing while I was working my job. I fell out of that plan because a lot of things that happened that I didn't prepare for. That I should have kept, like my man Keon, God rest his soul, rest in peace, Keon Johnson. He always would share with me, yo, keep your foot on the gas. While he was still here with us, he transitioned last year. He was 39 years old. Keon Johnson was one of my best friends, my childhood friend. He always said, keep your foot on the gas. When he meant by that, when he said that to me, it was when I was like releasing like these drops. And these drops that I was releasing, my very first drop was my first comic book drop was that I released on my official website was the Meteor Man drop, and that Meteor Man did numbers. It did numbers. I made every last individual hoodie by hand. I printed it, and October 15th, 2020, it took off. Like a lot of people purchased the hoodie, and each and every time I would share anything that I was dropping, I was guaranteed like you know uh, sales, a lot of sales. And it got to the point where I started sharing on my social media that I was looking for an assistant to help me, not just for the production studios orders, but just to that. But eventually I started taking on other orders, and you can only do so much, you know. But that drive that I had with the drops, I've allowed that thing because I was burnt out. Like literally, even after I left my job, I still felt like the burnout was still there, you know. And it took me a while to get a hold of just that momentum. You know what I mean? So and then it went from me thriving to surviving, you know. I went through a lot of things after 2022. It's like 2023. I went through a lot of things that put me into a hole. But that's what people talk about with entrepreneurship. I wasn't given a map on how to do entrepreneurship correctly. And, I'm the first person that I can even, look around, look left, look right to see that I'm doing this full time, and sometimes it's scary. Now I did, had to settle for a part time. It was like a part time job. When I was working at night shift, when I was explaining about that on the Ludacris video, the previous video about the peanut butter joint, when I was working at night shift, I really wasn't really working because if you seen what I was bringing to, I still kept that same motto: bringing the work to work. Even when I was working at Hopkins, I would bring the work to work. My friend Pat, he had just sent me a photo of me painting these Air Force Ones in my uniform, because I would do everything I needed to do, and then I would work on the work. I literally brought these Air Force Ones that I had painted and that I delivered to Nick Cannon. So Nick Cannon, Nick Cannon's Air Force One, there's two sides in our lab. We had the dirty side and we had the clean side. Now the dirty side wasn't too dirty, but it was like the soil side where we would process the cages to push through the machine. But we had little sections that we would kind of like build, like where we have the stereo, we'll charge our phones and the charging stations. That's what I was creating my art. Now I would work both sides, but in order to operate the machine, you would have to push the cages through and then turn the machine off when it's needed. But I was doing the shoes on both sides. And then that's how I was able to like really deliver the shoes and I have a quick turnaround. So bringing the work to work, that's what I was doing the night shift. I treated the night shift when I was working at as a concierge. I treated it the same way. And a lot of times I wasn't even there. I can admit it now because I don't work for them no more. I've been really doing this thing full time. But it was times I would go there to clock in and just dip out. You know what I'm saying? Because it was a chill's job. Nobody was required to be there. And then when I was there, I was just doing my work, or I was, you know, just creating, you know. And I'm just now in the process of really diving into creating things like I was creating things prior, with a now not burnt out um, uh, energy, momentum. I'm able to really fully create. And sometimes it gets a little scary when you have the ability to create, but you also have the ability to have discipline. You have to make sure you're taking care of yourself because you're not on that rat race of just, the day to day. Because every day that I was working at Hopkins, I was moving my body. So when I'm here and I'm working as an artist, as a creative, that always now I don't become possessive of the work, but sometimes I'm working and I might not eat for a few hours because I'm in the zone. When you're working a job, you're able to know when to cut it off. But when you're doing something, you're working your art and you're being an entrepreneur, you're doing something you love, you don't know when to cut it off. You don't know when to take a pause, take a break, you know? So it's a balance, it's a life balance that we have to always incorporate when we are doing this entrepreneurship and how we go about moving, in this life of creatives, you know? So I'm glad and I'm grateful to be able to share this with y'all. I feel like, everything is timely, you know what I mean? Because I remember looking back, it was like that meme that you see with the dog and everything is burning around him and he's just sitting there like everything's okay. We've all been there, you know what I mean? So yeah, that will conclude today's moments that made me, and for this Monday. And also, I will be dropping something. I won't share it just yet, but I will be dropping something, hopefully this week, So just be on the lookout for that. You know what I mean? I'm excited, because this is one of the drops I haven't released in a while. I've always been making things, for people, private commissions, so on and so forth. But I will be able to share, this with y'all ahead of time, and it feels great doing this because this was, So anyway, I don't even want to give too much, but be on the lookout for that. And thank y'all for all those who've messaged me, on IG or on here and left a comment, telling me that how these videos have been inspiring you to continue to push out the content. I'm grateful to be able to, inspire, because y'all inspire me. Y'all inspire me to continue to push to be me, because people know you in your close world, but, the world can benefit from your story as well, your testimony. You know what I mean? So it's much more to come. I'm grateful and I'm thankful, to have this platform to share with you guys. You know what I mean? Let's continue to, push out this week. It's Monday. But more to come, y'all. Thank y'all for tapping in. Leave a comment. Oh, geez, check this out. Like, share, subscribe for those who just tapped into this video for the first time, and follow me too. Follow me. But yeah, put all these into one playlist. So if you haven't, seen part one, I encourage you to go to the very first day. This is going to be a 30-day series, until I create, furthermore another series. But thank y'all. Thank y'all for tapping. I appreciate y'all. And looking forward to actually pumping out more of these. And it's more to come. But definitely leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And hope this encouraged someone today. All right. Peace.